Alright, so today we're here to talk about a couple hypervisor options and tools to manage hypervisors. And so I'm looking at a presentation here for Hotlink, and in one of the write-ups that a gentleman put together, he kind of demonstrates that the cost of hypervisors keeps going up, and Microsoft's hypervisor, the cost is going down, but the capabilities are increasing. So now what we're going to do is look at VMM, and we're going to segue into that, and we're going to add our vCenter to Virtual Machine Manager 2012. And this will give us the ability to manage it. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose my vCenter admin run as that I created, which is basically the one that I used for the single sign-on portion of the vCenter setup. So it's going to go ahead and add vCenter to VMM. And the next thing we're going to do in our fabric on the Wonder bar is we're going to go up here to add a new host, and we're going to add VMware ESX host and cluster. And I'm using my vCenter root password here, which is the one that I use to actually add the machines to the cluster within vSphere. So here's our cluster OD, and you can see our ESX lab servers. We're going to go ahead and hit next. And in the future, I would like to see Microsoft expand out the capabilities of VMM to have folders, to add security at the folder level. VMM works just fine for VMware. Actually, it works reasonably well because it sort of doesn't work any better or worse, in my opinion, when you're managing HyperV. It is a third-party application that kind of sits on top of the hypervisor. So that's good and bad. It's good from a perspective of that it will integrate with VMware just fine. All right, so now we're in an OK limited state, and we're going to go ahead and go to each of the clusters, and we're going to manage them, or each of the hosts and manage them, and we have to import the certificate, basically. Once we do that for each host server, then essentially we'll be in a state where we can actually create VMs and whatnot versus just kind of a read-only state. So once we do this, I'll show you a couple more little features here. And there's a couple of things to note, but anyone that's managing VMware will probably already know this. When you create VMs, you need to do SCSI drive instead of IDE and a couple of things like that. But for the most part, you'll get around it pretty quick. So the feature at here is whether you're familiar with VMware or HyperV, that eventually you have one pane of glass to do all your work, and you don't have to worry about having separate sets of policies and checklists to perform similar work. Eventually you can just create, for the most part, everything in one area. And I'm talking about the consumers and of the VMs, if you will, like the average administrators. Of course, the guys that are the infrastructure managers of each technology are going to use their own back-end tool sets, but you could serve this up with VMM for the most part. Alright, so here's one of the caveats. I have this failed unsupported cluster configuration of a configman machine that's a leftover from when I had set up Hotlink earlier and removed it. And the thing that annoys me is that it will not let me delete this under any circumstance, even though it doesn't exist. And so there are little caveats like this that bother me, where it should say, hey, look, this is orphaned. I want to remove it from the view. In VMware, you have remove from view, and then you have delete from disk. So little things like that. When I removed my, when I blew up my vCenter previously, I tried to remove it from within the fabric, and it said that it was rejected by the host. Well, it's gone. Of course, it's not rejecting it. It doesn't exist. So there's a couple little things that I think Microsoft could do a better job of. But Microsoft's really catering to the cloud, SaaS and all that right now, and IaaS or S or whatever it is, like the different cloud providers. So they're putting in capability to build clouds and fabrics, and I don't think I'm their target at the moment. So hopefully we'll see some future expansion for folks that want to just manage large data centers and don't actually want to offer up or split up their infrastructure as a cloud. I want to be able to set up folder levels and have administrative groups that can have different, admin boundaries. I don't want to set up a cloud for that. I want to have different folders and assign NTFS level kinds of permissions to different machines. I want to have resource pools. I want to be able to better manage groups of replication groups and things like that, not so much a cloud. So basically we're going to go ahead and I've spun up this SRS machine, and as you can see it's running, and if we come over to our vCenter plugin, we will see that it's running over there as well. So now we're going to segue into Hotlink. And Hotlink looks really cool on YouTube. I mean, it was like, okay, I can actually manage VMware and use it to leverage my Hyper-V host servers. And kind of like the little slide deck said earlier, I can have these different tiers of hypervisors. Now, where that doesn't necessarily make sense in this paradigm is, as you'll see later, this is not letting me manage my clusters in an efficient way. So as the slide predicted, you have Microsoft's lower costs and higher flexibility. If I can't manage my clusters and high availability within Hotlink, then really it's kind of cheating me of free value add that Microsoft's giving me. So I would like to see Hotlink expand their capabilities to eventually basically allow me to do everything that Virtual Machine Manager can do in the way of managing my VMware infrastructure. I want Hotlink to replace VMM and allow me to manage my clusters and do everything from vCenter that I would want to do within VMM and Hyper-V. And if that day would come, then that would be really nice. Because then I could take my more familiar and gold tier, management tools, if you will, and then I could just basically keep all of my old documentation and all my old procedures and apply them to the silver hypervisor, so to speak. So when I go into failover cluster and I add that VM to be high available, it seems as if it automatically went offline and it became orphaned. So what I was hoping to do was then add it to the high available cluster and still be able to see it. So I mean, really, there's limited functionality here. I could bake some VMs, I could use some templates potentially, and then I could then go and spin them up on the cluster, and then now they're orphaned and I have to remove them. So I love the concept. I think Hotlink has a little ways to go, especially at its like $25,000 price point or whatever it is. But however, if you didn't need high availability and you had a really big cloud environment and you're using Zen and other types or KVM, then this product could be for you. So I hope you found this informative, and as time goes on, I find it interesting to see more types of cross-platform management suites.